This show is designed to give you first-hand insight to the human complexities in the life of an addict and the strength needed to get clean. You will see the darkness of addiction through the eyes of an addict. Each addict will share their personal experiences with drugs to try and help you with your struggles with drugs and alcohol. Your battles are our battles. We will help you with real stories from real people's lives. We, the cast of Darkness, promise you we will travel together through the darkness and onto a road leading to lighter times.
This show is about the true nature of addiction. It is intended to be both educational and emotional as you enter into the heart of the addict. There is nothing glamorous about addiction. You will not see addicts in a luxury rehab on this show. We are here to bring awareness to the core issues that impact recovery, as well as the family, friends, and lifestyle of the addict.
It all started when I was about 12 years old. I got into some bad things with some bad kids. I started robbing houses and stealing cars and nickel and diming people trying to make some money so I can get my next fix. Oh, what's good, Swan? How you been, man? Yo, I was actually just looking for you, man. What's good?
All day. What up, bro?
No, man, just chilling. You know, I gotta go with the kids and all that. What you been doing, man? Just chilling?
Just chilling, man.
Or, yo, I need to get some work, man.
What you need?
I need like a dub. You getting me a
Got
dub?
that for you.
You got me?
Yeah.
All right, bet, yo. So what's good? How's Melissa? How's everybody?
She good.
Chilling.
Son doing big. Good.
What about your brother? Yo, I haven't seen your brother in a minute, bro.
Get this money.
Word? All right, yeah, holla at me.
Yeah.
All right, good luck. So you get that. What's good, Bray? How you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Stand up.
Dog? That's it? That's all you want today?
Yeah, that's
You sure?
it. Yeah.
All right. Yo, watch my back for me, all right? All right. So how's everything? How's your sister and everybody? Good, staying out of trouble?
Trying to.
All right, stay safe, all right? Watch your back. Hi, I'm Scully. You're now watching Darkness. This whole skit that we just did was exactly what I just said it was. It was a skit, it was a scene. It was something that, just to show you how to recognize things when they're going on in the streets, you know, especially if you're watching your kids or something like that, you know what they're doing when they're around their friends. Especially listen for the things that they say, because they could be saying keywords like dubs or some stuff like that. So always listen for things like that. I just want to introduce two of my friends that helped me out. Come on, guys. One's Antoine. This is my friend Antoine Boy, and this is Brianna Helmke. These are my two close friends that just helped me out with the show today. On behalf of Darkness, I want to thank you guys for coming out and helping me out.
No problem, man.
You know, stay out of trouble. Bree, thank you so much for helping me out. I hope you guys have a good day.
Watch Darkness.
Okay, listen up. Let's talk about the streets. How much do you really know about street lingo? Learn what your kids are saying and what they're doing. So please, pay attention.
Now we're gonna talk to you about some lingo. We're gonna talk to you about how people used to talk about things in the old days, like drugs, and we're gonna tell you how like the new teenagers and all everybody these days have been switching things up because you know the terminology and everything is all different, right? So for instance, back in the day, people used to say, "Oh, you're smoking that dope, smoking that dope." Now they're talking about weed.
That grass.
Yeah, exactly. So now they say dope, weed, grass. You know, they smoke J's.
Pot. That's
Yeah.
back in the
Now
day.
these days,
Hippies.
everything's different. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I could be like, "Yo, you want to smoke an L?" That would be
Got
weed.
an L, you
know
got
what I
a
mean?
blunt.
Got a blunt.
I need
got
some
some-
trees.
You got
trees.
that chi. You
People
got
say
that
piff. You want to smoke piff. You know, you gotta look out for things like this.
Kush.
Especially when your friends, your kids are talking on the phone to their friends,
Yeah.
and your parent is listening in. You want to listen for things like this, like piff or chi or something like that, because that means they're talking about weed. You know what I mean? Or spliff or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, it goes for all drugs, like cocaine. Cocaine has different names like yayo, white girl. The Spanish people, they also say in Spanish like perico.
Perico.
Mota is weed.
Nose
perico.
candy.
Perico is coke.
Nose candy.
Nose candy is also coke.
I figured we'd talk about, let's give a little insight on
nicknames or code words for drugs.
Which was the best thing for me, because being on the opposite end of the drug spectrum with you, since you like the downers, I like the uppers, you never knew what I was talking about, and I had no idea what you were calling people about.
Which a lot of parents don't realize either, that their kids are talking about to avoid cops, to avoid schools, so they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, there's, I remember there's, Percocet 30s, which are called Roxy's or Blueberries. And, what else? You have Oxycontin or OCs or...
And you doing landscaping, when you were talking about blueberries, I figured you were just talking about a really difficult farm that, this big blueberry patch you had to get through, I had no idea what you really wanted.
There's, Suboxone, which you're supposed to use to get off of drugs, and people call those oranges because they're orange, or they call them strips because they look like Listerine strips.
And that's what I figured it was every time you got one of those.
Coke. But
well, it was easiest for me in the winter because I call somebody and say, "Oh, are we going skiing tonight?" Skiing's easiest way, and I'm not just gonna come out and say that I want to buy this much crack. I'm gonna say I want to go hard tonight. That's what I called it. It's called hard because cocaine to me was soft. So if I called somebody and said, "Yo, you're so soft tonight," and I gotta that's how it was for me.
Here they have that white girl.
Yeah.
The white girl, they call it Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera or Lady Gaga because they're all white. They call it that. You got rock for crack.
And then dope. Now, dope in the old days used to be weed. Dope isn't weed anymore these days. Dope is now heroin. Or manteca.
Dog food.
Diesel.
That boy.
There's a lot of different names for it. There's a lot of different terminology. And the teens growing up these days, they're the ones that are changing the game.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are putting all different names on everything and explaining things so different that they try to make it so that if you're in the streets, you don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to keep everything on the hush hush. They're trying to keep everything.
It's like a street code.
Yeah, it's like exactly what it is. It's a street code. You gotta live by the code pretty much if you're living in the streets. You know what I mean? And as an addict, you gotta know these things.
Definitely.
Because when you're going and talking to somebody else, if I walked up to somebody today and said, "Hey, let me get a bag of coke," they're gonna look at you like you got 10 heads. You know what I mean? You can't just walk up to somebody and say, "I need coke."
They might even look at you like you're police. You want a bag of coke?
They're gonna think you're a cop. Something like that. So
they don't say that.
Especially if you're home and your kids are on the phone and they're talking on the phone, you want to listen for things like if they're pretending to place an order. If you know they're not on the phone calling a food place and they're trying to place an order, that's not what they're doing. They're calling for drugs. I can call him and be like, "Yo, what's good? Yo, did you go to the store and get the new Jordan 6s?
Yeah.
Jordan 6s could be J for weed, like how people used to say back in the old days. So you'd be weed $60 worth of weed with the Jordan 6s. Or I could be like, "Yo, you got 15 chicken nuggets?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could always say something different and you're never gonna know. You always gotta look at things like that. And the teens growing up these days, they're the ones that are changing the whole game. They're changing everything up. So that's what you got to pay attention to. It's always the new and most upcoming thing that you want to pay attention to.
Ecstasy was X, or ecstasy comes in so many different. They have different emblems on it and different shapes. So each one has its name. I remember there was one that looked like a Smurf. Maybe call it. Let me get the blue Smurfs or the purple stars, or and
to me, that could have been anything.
H for heroin, or you got that D, dope. Bud, or smoke for weed. There's so many.
As far as even, when people were talking about smoking wet or the wave, I'm gonna ride the wave. That was the biggest term that I heard, and that's PCP. Angel dust. Any of that stuff you could hear. You're never gonna hear the actual term for it.
Because then people are gonna think you're a cop or a narc when you actually be like, "Can I get some coke or can I get some angel dust?"
A gram of cocaine. Then they're gonna be like, "Okay, well that's not what I have."
That's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So, there's so many different names. People make up names for everything. It changes with times, but a lot of times it also stays the same.
Or the rippling of
Let's
the
talk
water.
about what is it, direction of the water? This
Right.
is good stuff.
I remember a Simpsons episode, when the water flushed one way and he called Australia and he's like, "Does your toilet flush in the opposite direction in Australia?"
The minute you take a stick in the yard for any reason, she thinks it's complete.
I have no words.
And she'll just.
Actually, honestly, to interrupt you guys just for a minute, I know thinking about just being in different places, different times, in that, state of mind, noticing our empty chair, talking about Scully and Keith, remembering him, just what had happened during the one episode that he was filming, doing a drug transaction, trying to set that up as, you know, to make it look as real as possible, we're using real money. So the cameraman, you know, gave him $32 out of his pocket to use for that scene to make the drug deal go down and make it look as real as humanly possible. And from then, you know, the money stayed with him for the second scene, and you know, I guess the money went to another female for the next deal that went on, and ended up back in Keith's hands. And at the end of that, you know, he was busy talking to Denise, and the cameraman's packing up. Everybody's doing what they have to do, and you know, I guess on the way out, all of a sudden, you know, cameraman, you know, was like, "Oh, I forgot to ask for that $32 back." And you know, in hindsight, Denise, you know, had said that Keith was talking about needing gas money, and so she had gone out of her way to go and get the $20 for gas money. So in addition to that $32, there's the $20 for gas money, whereas, you know, camera guy having a good heart saying, well, you know, if I forgot, at least he's got money to go home with. Really the way it was, and, you know, until he faces it on his own, you know, he took the money, and, you know, from the cameraman, from the cast, and just from, in general, the show, you know, and that's part of that addictive behavior. You know, even though we're getting through the recovery, there's still going to be that trigger of addiction, no matter where you are.
It speaks to the insanity of the disease. You know, the insanity of addiction kept me out there lying to myself for 20 years, you know, thinking that I was getting over on people, and like kind of getting off on the fact that, oh, I got over, you know. So it's not even about the money itself, it's the behavior that's the problem. Someone was being a witness to my actions, but I'm still lying about it. So in reality, it's completely insane behavior. But when we're in it, we think it's perfectly justified.
Right. And in that sense, you know, I'm sorry, you say it's not a strength or a weakness. Yes, it absolutely is a weakness. Whether or not that weakness is directly tied into addiction or character behaviors that were existent prior to addiction, all of us are in recovery. None of us took money from our cameraman and denied we had it.
You're not a weak person because you made a mistake. You know, it was just that, and it's not that, you know, you're too strong that you got over on somebody, you know, and that's what I think this should all be about, is that we can't judge anybody and we can't judge each other because we can't judge ourselves
Exactly.
even
It's all
first.
conjecture. We don't know what he's been through.
The spirits that I'm going to carry through my recovery are the spirits that have really led me out of addictive behavior into behavior that I I feel proud of.
Right, but the thing is that
But
we
he
don't
made a
really know
choice.
him that well enough to even
We're
carry
not
him through
wizards.
anything.
It's just a nice thing to say.
He made a choice.
Maybe.
When I was his age, I would, and I wanted to get high, I would steal and I would do what it takes. And I probably would have too much shame to come back and face it. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not better than anyone. He seized an opportunity. He had tunnel vision.
He made a choice that to him was justified, you know, because I'm getting over, I'm powerful, I have that much power, you know. I know for myself in recovery that I have to change my thinking completely. I'm powerless over my urges, over other people, over what they say about me, over how I feel about myself, and I gotta take from others so that I can survive, not just make a selfish choice. You know, I kind of agree with her in that, oh well, he made a choice. You know, he knew what the he probably knew what the consequences would have been, but he did it anyway.
The saddest part is that he missed out on the larger opportunity to be part of us, to be part of this show, and the opportunity that we are all hopefully going to have, which is to help another alcoholic, to help another drug addict, to help people get clean, sober, and healthy. And
Anybody here ever not been in that place?
I've been there.
I'll tell you what,
I've been there
I
too.
haven't been in that place. I haven't stolen.
I'll tell you what,
Okay, but at least not stealing, but like been in a place where you really think that your behavior is not going to get noticed or anything, and you sabotage something really, really good for yourself.
in a way, I'm glad I'm not him. I'm glad I'm me, and I'm glad that I feel right now in my recovery that I'm past that point, and that I wouldn't do that, and I would fear the consequences, and I would care about how it affects others and myself. And maybe he, wasn't ready yet, and he's gonna have to suffer the consequences of that. And I hope someday he is ready.
And I feel sorry for the kid, because imagine the shame he's feeling right this moment.
Yeah.
You know, where he's been offered a chance to come back, redeem himself, and didn't take it. You know?
And that's too bad, because I know that all of us can empathize with that. I mean, I guess I'd say I never stole money, but certainly I stole from employers in the sense that I would come in late for work, too hungover to really function that day, and they were still paying me. That's a form of stealing.
I stole from my life.
Yes, exactly. I stole opportunities from myself so many times. It's ridiculous.
Part of the disease, in my opinion, it will trick you into justifying that
Right.
what you
Right.
did was right,
Exactly.
even though you know it's not right. You will trick yourself into believing that, so you can continue to go on.
And, and that's
Make
part of the
yourself believe
addiction.
in
That's part of
whatever.
the payoff for the person is that I feel good because I got over it.
Right.
You know, I did it my way and I won.
Right.
You know, allegedly. But you're only hurting yourself, you know, and that's what I keep getting back to is the insanity thinking. I guess he just needed more pain.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really sad, but it's really true. Some people just need more pain.
When I was his age, I wouldn't have come back and faced up to this.
I agree.
And it had people, you know, talking about me that I took something in me. I would have made me very uncomfortable.
probably.
I wouldn't have been man enough to face up to it.
Right. That's your pride just out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was even an addict and I would do stuff like that, I would even shove it off like it wasn't a thing. I would have came and I would have been like, yeah, it happened, and what? Because that's who I was when I did it. I didn't care who you were, what you did, how bad you were,
And that's
what you thought of me. I still think that way, but I'm not as...
That's that
Maybe
false
not as
pride.
Right, exactly, where it just was like, I'll do what I want, and if you didn't like it, then turn your head.
Right.
Otherwise, I turn it for you.
I'm going to talk about insane thinking. I've heard true stories, right, where the husband got pulled over going home, okay, is in the police station, calls the wife. Now, the wife's been drinking all night just like he's been drinking. Honey, come get me. She drives to the police station, picks him up, and she gets arrested at the police station, okay, for driving DUI. Now they're both drunk and both in jail at the same
fighting each
time.
other at that
And
point.
probably fighting each other at that point, too. It's just insane.
How
That's
your
crazy
addiction
on
can fuel
each
somebody
other's-
else's addiction and make it 10 times worse.
That's kind of what happened
Which you
with
think, because
us.
that's your only friends, really, when you're an addict, basically, or other addicts. So then you try to lean on that other person, meanwhile, they're doing the exact same thing as you, so
Like, I couldn't
what
lean
is
on
the
you,
point in
you
that?
couldn't lean on me because we were doing the same thing.
Same
but
thing with my
opposite.
friends, man. We all used to
You
go
know?
get high, and one of us would get in trouble and be like, oh, well, come get me. Yeah, sure. Come in a carload full of people still smoking, coming out the windows. Can you guys step out of the car, please? You know, like
I think that's the only way that I've gotten lucky in using and drinking all these years. I don't drink anymore, obviously, but I should have gotten maybe hundreds of DWIs. I've been stopped so many times. I've taken people's doors off. I've wobbled out of the cars and I thought I was in a club from the police lights. I'm glad I didn't ride
You almost
with
be
you
so
over
good
here.
at it, though.
And I never got a DWI, and I guess I've been lucky that way, and I've never hurt anyone or hurt myself that way. But other ways, you know, I've paid for it tenfold.
From what I've heard, the mother is really enabling this. I know that if someone had called my house and said, your daughter owes money, my mother would have made certain that I was where I was supposed to be, returning that money, no questions asked. She would not be stepping in, making excuses for me. And
It's pretty common though, and eventually he will have to sink. He will have to swim or sink.
Yeah.
So she can only protect him for so long, but this big bad world will eat you up alive if you don't take charge of your own life.
You did what you did on camera.
Yeah.
It's on film.
That's the
And
only
yet
thing
you're
I
still
don't-
denying it.
But that was the
You know, to
television.
me, that's just the highest level of denial and insanity that I've ever heard of.
Right. And stop covering up for their
Stop
mistakes.
covering the programs.
My mother thinks I'm the greatest guy in the world. If she knows some of the stuff that I've done, she
Well,
might lose her lunch.
My mom does the same thing. My mom puts me on a pedestal, and she knows what I've done, and she still makes me like I'm the golden child. And I'm like, you know, she knows because my mom's been in situations like that. So it's
think
where
about how hard that must be and so heartbreaking.
hey, you gotta lie for you.
to
Embarrassing.
have a child who is dealing with drug issues, alcohol issues, legal issues, and you must just think, well, what am I doing wrong?
Like all of us have some type of like, you know, hurt or anger like from our past that has something to do with that scenario, you know, that we're all talking about, and it almost like brought up memories, you know. It was like a trigger for us
Yeah.
to talk about what happened to us, you know, going through all this, through the recovery.
I don't know if it's the same with anybody, but it makes me kind of angry what happened because I grew up with a lot of guys who stabbed me in the back, and thieves, people you invite over your house who rob from you, steal from you, stab you in the back, like real scumbags. And you know, it just reminds me of that same behavior, you know. And you get away from it a little bit, you know. I've gotten away from it a little bit, and then you hear something, you know, like Keith that was in our group and like brings you right back, you know, and it surprises you again to me, but
Yeah,
it really
it's
shouldn't.
always-
You,
Yeah.
It brings you right freaking back. Well, it's typical. What do you expect? You
And
know?
it brings back those old feelings of how you
Yeah.
felt.
You know.
So
say
I
he
had
was
an
in jail,
experience
too.
with the manipulation. I guess it's sort of, I guess what we were talking about, being able to manipulate someone and thinking they didn't know or that you took something. But when I was arrested, the judge told me to do 2 days of alcohol classes, I think a Saturday and a Saturday. So I went partying at a recording studio the night before, and I smelled like liquor the next day. I took 2 showers that morning so I wouldn't smell like it.
Wow.
And I thought I was good. I sprayed, and I went, and I was still tipsy. So I went, and I sat all the way in the back so that no one couldn't smell. But it was me and another gentleman that we both did it, and about 20 people. And they just said, "Who's been drinking?" And I looked around like, I have no idea. Because it wasn't me. I was
Even your
like,
face
I
just
did
felt
mine.
like I believed you when you said that. Like, that's how, like,
Yeah,
it's-
I was like, I did last night, but not today. So that I didn't feel like I drank, you know?
Right.
Right.
So they did a breathalyzer on everyone, and the guy next to me is like, "Hey, I had Listerine. You cannot possibly say I was drinking alcohol. I rinsed my mouth out. They knew the difference. I didn't have no kind of excuse at that point. So I was afraid, but I couldn't say anything. But I know now I did try to manipulate the whole thing of not raising my hand and saying I drank. I just felt like they wouldn't notice.
I can't
So you
say
had
that
bad
the
breath, is
classes
that what you're
were
saying?
No,
not-
I just smelled like liquor. Like,
Yeah.
I guess, you
The
know.
classes were definitely
And
triggered
I
for
walked
me.
in very proud. like,
2
I was
days.
gonna get away with this.
I did do one of those
Classes, like,
classes.
when I, if
Do you want to get high now?
not right this second, no, I don't. And God willing, I will never feel that way again. You know,
I still have
don't-
moments where I
Yeah.
think about it and I
None of us
want
ever
it.
have to feel that way
Right.
again. That's
But-
the beauty of recovery. You
But
don't
there's
ever have to
always
feel that way again.
triggers in life,
Sure.
and there's certain points that I do struggle with still. You know, I mean that it'll come to it, and I'll have anxiety, and then that's why I referred to it as medication when I was going through my lowest point. You know, because that's what made me stable, so I didn't have to deal with being sad or happy or having my emotions all over the place. I could
Yeah.
just be stable.
I
You know,
do want to say that I'm glad that I see everyone's differences and what they were addicted to and things like that, because when I had to do the classes for 6 months after I got a longer term, I was in a class with women that were on different stuff, pills and a lot of harder things that I was doing. And I thought, like, okay, I'm an alcoholic, I did coke, so why am I here? I felt like their addiction was worse than mine. Like I wasn't addicted. I drank a lot, but I realized after that
You were
that I
minimizing.
was
used
like
to
doing
think
it
the
that
same
way. Like
way.
I didn't belong there totally. Like, but I knew now I know that I did.
And
It
everyone-
helped me a lot.
Did you
to
take any of them
realize-
out for drinks?
No, I did.
Must have been in heaven.
But now I realize that it's all in the same, because even after that I still continued to drink, and I found myself trying to scrape up change. When I need something else, I might need a pair of pants, but I'll go buy my liquor first, or I'll go buy, bottles, hide them, and I'm the same way, and I didn't really realize that until later on, and so I looked at everybody and met different people. So I'm glad that I got a chance to meet everybody with different experiences.
Right.
I have a question for everyone. So when something comes up now that's a trigger, how much confidence do you have in yourself handling the triggers without using or drinking?
I can say honestly, like I've learned a lot. Like you were saying, like everybody has their differences. Especially, with Anthony and I, like we were completely opposite ends. I was uppers, he was downers. So we learned a lot from each other because I had to understand his withdrawals. He had to understand mine, and when I have my triggers that come up, I have to, in my head, I gotta put those thoughts in my head and just kind of separate what's going on and know that I do have someone that will be there for me, that understands me. You guys can understand me. Someone can understand me. I don't have to hide myself from anybody. I don't have to hide myself from the world. I have to be who I am. I was who I was, but that's not who I am now.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think once you just get to finally to a certain point where you realize it's just like, with me, I hated the withdrawal, so it was just, usually when I was going through it, it was just, oh, I'll get one tomorrow just so I don't feel like crap. And it wasn't even the point of getting high anymore. And then I just kind of got to where I was just like, I really hate withdrawal. Like, I hate it with a passion, more than anything in this world. Like, I will go crazy. I'll break the whole house if it came down to it. So, like, that's where it came into, like, there's triggers, but I remember that trigger is not as bad as that withdrawal. And that feeling of going through hell and crying, laying on the floor,
Fighting and the pain is just-
looking back, I feel kind of, like, disgusted looking at it, like, damn, what the hell was I doing and why was I
Would you
doing
say
that?
that being honest with yourself was a real important piece?
Yeah, definitely the most important piece.
Because I think the biggest thing that most addicts struggle with, including myself, because I did for many years, was that I could not be honest with myself,
Right.
and admit that, you know what, I'm flawed. I'm not that perfect person that I thought I was. You know,
I used to say it
and
because I was getting prescription drugs.
once I got honest with myself, then my recovery really started to grow leaps and bounds because I was able to kind of laugh at myself. When I got into the addictive thinking and the insane thinking, I was able to say, oh, wait a minute, that's probably not the best way to think. You know, and I was able to be honest with myself and look for advice and ask for help and these kinds of things. So I think it's real important that we all be honest with ourselves and be open to the fact that somebody else might know better than we do.
It took me a long time. I mean, like, I always labeled my crack, my cocaine. That was my medication. That's what I called it. It took me extremely,
We use the same pharmacy. We use the same pharmacy.
Yeah,
I feel.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like, to me, it's medicine. It's not a drug. I'm not a drug addict.
I think that's
my
what
medication.
Scully needs to do is he needs to be
That was my
honest with
plan.
himself.
Better than I thought.
With me, it has to do with a little bit of insecurity. I have to love myself, and I'm not going to let whether it be a woman, whether it be losing a job, whether I feel inferior, or I don't feel as smart as somebody else. You know, I'm not going to let that, you know, make me have the consequences of drinking, because the consequences are what the hell scares me these days. And in a way, I probably would still be drinking if there wasn't consequences, but there are.
She's the same way with that.
There always is, whether it be something small, from driving your car and blowing out your tire, or breaking a beautiful piece of furniture you loved all your life, or losing a friend, losing someone. There's always consequences, always. And if you don't see them, then you're not looking hard enough. But and that scares me.
That's what happens to me a lot. That's my trigger. Like the weekend and being out, and I live in the neighborhood where that's what's on the corner, the liquor store, every corner. I can go get some Chinese food. Liquor store's right next door. You know what I mean? And you see the people.
What about the
That's
next
like,
day?
what about
What
those
about the
feelings?
next day?
I had to learn
the feelings of, like, when you're not feeling insecure, but you're feeling like,
I had
this
to
is what I
learn-
want to do today.
If I take something out of myself, I got to replace it with something. You know, so I had to learn how to have fun without alcohol and drugs. I had to learn that when I get triggered, I have to do something
Well, I do
to
that
manage
now.
the trigger.
Yeah, I do that a lot of times. Sometimes I'm not too great with it, but I do it. I write music, I
There you
sing.
go.
I do a lot of different things to cover, to replace things like that. But there are times that I do have to fight and battle with it during the day. and
Or,
during the night.
or how about instead of fighting battle with it, how about just surrender to the fact that I'm having a trigger, but there's nothing I can do
I'm
about
still,
it right
I
now.
still got to learn. Still learning.
I'll get it. That's great. I know when I'm alone, I'm in a bad place sometimes when I'm in here, and I have to answer all my questions, and I have to be by myself in my head. That is a bad place for me, and I isolate a lot. That's what I did when I used to drink. I would, I'd hang out alone in my house listening to my music, drifting off into a fantasy.
That's what I did with pills.
I like
Right.
drinking.
You know what the biggest trigger for me is?
Hairspray.
A glass of wine just still looks beautiful and seductive and the kind of thing that
Talks to you when you're just sitting there?
exactly. And the trigger is when I'm in a social situation with other friends, other adults who are enjoying that one glass of wine, that one drink, that those alien beings who are the rest of the population who can and do have just one drink. And I look at them and I think to myself, the idea of getting drunk does not appeal to me at all anymore. But why can't I have that one drink that allows me to relax a little bit, laugh like they're laughing, lower those social anxieties like like they are? But I can't.
Neither can I.
There is no way I can have just that one glass of wine. Many of my friends and family did not believe or think I was alcoholic because I still managed my life in a relatively orderly way.
Were you taking care of yourself?
No.
So exactly,
truly,
how
under the
functional
surface,
were you?
I was not at all.
That's my point.
And under the surface, everything was falling apart, and it was taking so much time and energy to manage my drinking and manage all those other things to keep up the veneer of being a functional alcoholic.
Doesn't exist.
And there's so many ways to be dysfunctional. Okay, so you can keep your job, and you can keep drinking, and you can keep your family going. But you know what? When you're 50 years old and you have cirrhosis of your liver, how is that functioning?
But how are you really communicating with your family? Does your family love you? Are you doing the things for your
Right.
family that you should be doing?
Probably not as well as you could have.
Exactly. Like
Absolutely.
she hit it on the head. It's
But
a
I'm saying-
veneer.
Now I actually stop to enjoy and love the moment, and I'm grateful for the moment that I'm in. And what I have you guys, and just
And we're
Yeah.
you know, we're all
Spirits
here.
again.
We're all in recovery. We're all here, and we all want to be clean and sober. And so we've all made that decision that, you know,
Except
we
for
don't. The consequences were more than what we wanted. We all made that choice.
I think it's important to remember too, though, that everyone's recovery is very personal to them.
This is true.
And so what recovery might mean for me could be absolutely 180 degrees different from what it means to you.
Because I feel like I'm in recovery and I've drank.
It's important. It's important for me in my recovery to respect the other person's opinion. Okay,
Well put.
because there is a saying. You know, the saying is "live and let live." So I have to live first, and then once I can get over myself, I then have to let you live how you see fit. You know, because part of my addiction was wanting to control everybody and their thoughts, especially their thoughts regarding me. You know, so you
That
know,
was a good lesson. Thank you. I needed to hear that.
I had to be really, really careful, especially in early recovery for myself, in terms of defining what it was for other people. Because in reality, what recovery is to somebody else, for them, is none of my business. You know, so because I know several people, many people, who were crack addicts or heroin addicts and had no issue with alcohol whatsoever, who have recovered from their crack and heroin addiction and will occasionally go out and drink socially. For them, they're very lucky people, I feel, you know, that they can have 1-2 drinks, put it down, and not drink again for a month. I cannot do that. That's all I'm trying to say.
I don't think it's a matter of saying, oh, it's okay to have a drink here and there, because I don't feel that way.
No,
and I was
don't
alcoholic. But I
can't
have had a drink,
here and there.
but I've had a drink, and it's not always great. It's not good for me. But I'm still going through the process of recovering. And I'm not going to say I'm not in recovery, because there's times I don't have a drink for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or a month, and I'm proud of myself. But then there's times where I feel like, okay, I'm going to drink. I don't feel like I can do it, and it happens. I relapse, and I accept that, and I recognize it, and I have to keep going from where I started, where I messed up at, and keep going.
You know what's really cool? You know what's really cool?
You're so sickeningly positive. What's wrong with
What's really cool though? What's really cool though, I think, is that when you come back next week, we're gonna have even better discussion.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I will not fall out of my chair.
And
I hope.
I'm not recovered, but I'm in recovery.
Yes.
And my recovery is strong right now. And
goodbye.
unfortunately, Scully's isn't.
Bye, Scully.
Wow. Okay, that's a strong reaction.
Yeah.
But
Don't do drugs. Stay clean. Pay attention.
Next week,
You'll learn
anger
something next
management.
week.
That's funny because I live near the Tappan Zee Bridge, and they should put like bungee cords there because people commit suicide like every other week jumping off that bridge.
And what? So people are going to take the opportunity to use the bungee?
It might give them a second opportunity. Well, maybe I should
be like?
try
So
it out
just-
first, because if I change my mind, I'm on the court.
This is the
You know,
one
I'm
and
on the
only time you
bungee
get a
cord.
second chance.
you know what?
Yeah.
They took a survey of people that tried to jump off bridges and survived. They took a survey of those people, and most are like a crazy number, like 85% of those people, the first thought they had in their minds after they jumped off was, oh shit.
Yeah.
So they really didn't want to die. You know what I mean? They really didn't want to die. They just wanted to end the pain that they were going through.
My life-changing moment was when I was first asked if I considered myself a drug addict, because I never did. And at that moment, during the interview when the show first started, I said to myself, you know, this whole time I said it was my medication. I'm not a drug addict because I can control it. I can use it when I need it, and I can stop when I want. And in reality, I am a medication drug addict. I'm medicated, but I'm a drug addict. I am. And I had to come to that conclusion. And knowing that I can now look you guys directly and say, I'm a drug addict, and I was, and I went through it, and I'm in recovery, and I made it, that's life-changing for me, because that's something I never thought I'd ever be able to look at anybody and say. And that's why I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for the show, and it was just completely life-changing to be a part of it, and it helped me. And I hope it helped you.
We hope that you learned a lot from watching it. If you come back, we're going to be talking about things like sex and recovery. I had a hard time having sex sober for a long time. It was difficult. Then we talk about relationships in recovery, anger management, managing your triggers, managing your stress, family issues. It's all affected by this disease of addiction. But we're Darkness, and we're here to help you. So if you come back next week, I'm sure we will. Thanks.
Hey, we'll see you next time. We will be here.
Stay aware.
Stay with us.
Keep positive. stay out of the darkness, alright?
Knowledge and awareness bring freedom and joy. So imagine the freedom and joy you can begin to experience as you gain new insights into the true nature of addiction.
In next week's episode, Drugs, Drugs, and More Drugs, you will hear how drugs affect the sex life of an addict. Why was he arrested? And why is he getting beat down? Stay tuned next week for another exciting educational episode.
Thank you.